Hey everybody, Tim Kelly here for Master Photo Techniques. Welcome, and I hope you're a subscriber. We need you to do that for us if you want to keep seeing new videos every week. I have actually a very big story to tell you in a very little time. It's one that I share quite often in my classes, and I just did a couple classes, so I'm very reminded of it. And it's an important lesson about how to find your personal style. That is not the way you dress, that's the way you see things in your camera and the way you present final images. I learned rather unexpectedly, maybe it was an anointed God thing that happened, but in 1988, when I was fixing to open a new studio and spend a lot of money on it, I was doing great work, don't get me wrong, but I was doing what everybody else that sold large portraits in that time and place were doing. And that was like 30-40s, 40-60s, and bigger canvases, paintings, ornate frames, all that kind of thing. And it's good work, but it really wasn't my heart. It wasn't what I was about, but that didn't matter. I was opening a business with the intent of making money by producing a product for the people of that city. And that was Winter Park, Florida. And the place I was opening was on Park Avenue, and that's kind of a Rodeo Drive address. Very, very pricey, very exclusive, and it was time for me to step out and do that. I knew that. And I spent a lot of time and a lot of money building this beautiful gallery and sales room, and I had, a nice camera room and all that too. But what happened was, as the days were closing towards my opening, I had the gallery full of large painted canvases. I'll show you pictures here of it, and I was pleased with it. However, I didn't realize that I suddenly had a front window in my store that had nothing in it. So here's where the story begins, and the whole story evolves over just 48 hours. So while I could do my own color printing and my black and white printing, I did everything except color film at that time. So it took longer to do color images. And here's what happened. Though the gallery was full of color images, when I realized I only had one day until my grand opening and there was nothing in the window, I quickly, without thinking, and this is the key point, without even thinking about it, I grabbed my number 2 son and did a portrait of him in less than 5 minutes on a muslin, black and white 4x5 film. Then I went and got my salesman's daughter, who was there, took another style black and white picture of her, literally 5 to 10 minutes. And it was probably only a little longer because her daddy was there fussing with stuff while we were making this image. And the third one was of my youngest daughter, who was less than a year old, probably 9-10 months or something at that time. Plopped her in a chair, a velvet office chair, made 4 or 5 frames, picked one. So here's what happened in the course of 1 hour maximum time from getting the idea to having it executed. And I had done 3 little mini sessions, which now I was going to take home, process, pick my favorites, and have at least something for the window. That was my goal. So I did go home, process, select a frame, made a 16-20 of my little daughter, a 20x24 of middle son, and a 24x30 of my salesman's daughter. 3 large black and white pictures. I also then took them next morning to my framer, had them matted and framed, and brought them quickly over to our new location. So here's where it gets really quite fascinating. From a purely business sense, it was successful, though entirely unplanned, that nobody was buying color portraits. They all wanted the black and white that I now showed them in my window. And that was wonderful. I literally couldn't give away color. And I was charging a lot of money in that new location for my work. So it was extremely successful, but it was shocking as to how much power those 3 black and whites had. Now, the thing is, I did black and whites before that, but I didn't have a system for showing them. So in those days when we did color, we projected slides and people would pick from a little slideshow which ones they wanted enlarged. When we would do black and white, it was usually a commercial session, a headshot session, and we'd like make contact prints and bring them out and show them off. And that's not the best way to show off your work, because if on my Hasselblad I had 12 frames, and even if I grease penciled out some of them that I didn't like, the client is looking at 12 shots on a sheet and seeing that I only have 3 or 4 left that are good. So their overall impression is, you're not that very good. You only gave me 3 out of 12. Now, you and I know there's nothing wrong with that, but the perception was wrong. So I figured out a way to make black and white slides, made the people come back and see projection, and I was instantly selling very, very large black and white portraits. That's all great, but this is not what the story's about. The story is really the fact that when I made those images in black and white of those kids for my window, I did it completely on the fly, shooting from the hip, total instinct. I was completely satisfied in minutes with what I had done, so I didn't have to work very hard at making those kind of images. It was natural. And because it was natural to me, I would be able to repeat it. When the next client came in with their little kid or kids and they wanted that look or whatever, I could do it effortlessly. In fact, the way I was pricing at the time for sessions, it was for up to an hour. So I would do these private studies and charge a good amount, probably 10 times what the average going rate was, and I would get the shot in 10 minutes. So after that, I just kind of spent the time and experimented a little bit, but the shot was captured in 5 to 10 minutes on every black and white session, because I was doing something totally instinctive. So when we talk about personal style, again, photographically, for me, that was the fact that the way I see things, unlike the way you see things, the way I see things was concrete. It was one way. The way I wanted to interpret a child in black and white was just 100% the way I wanted it interpreted. So I was no longer doing what was common in the city at that time for style and all that. Photography's gone through a lot of styles. There was a period where we were all using tooling and making it all fluffy and beautiful and soft. That was a style, and props were heavy. And now I'm doing black and white, very loose image, as you can see in the photographs I've shown you, and no props, no props. So it's a whole new style, but nobody had been seeing this. So, and it's not new as far as the world of photography goes. It was instinctive to me, but historically there have been other photographers that have done similar things in years gone by, because they only would shoot 1, 2, 3, or 4 frames of sheet film, and that would be the session. And essentially, in 1988, that's what I took up that mantle, and that's exactly what I was doing. So I was doing children's portrait photography a brand new way, though it's been very emulated over the years, and I've personally taught thousands of photographers my style. That doesn't mean it's their style. It was what launched me, because when I opened my store, I had no clue where I would end up the next week. It was just a total revelation to me that doing something my way was fresh and new. So that's what I want to share with you, is that you may be currently emulating popular looks, and there are several or many. There's a wider gamut than ever in professional photography. And that's great for learning your craft. But ultimately, you have to stand out, as I did in that period of my life. And you will find it if you go with gut instinct. You still have to know all your basics. You still have to be good with people. You have to have a competent, price list and all that kind of thing. But what your images look like should be up to you. And this little example that I'm trying to share with you today is about doing it from your heart, from your gut, and being unique, being as far apart from the pack as possible. So I hope that helps you today. Stay with us on Tim Kelly's Master Photo Techniques, and we will keep telling you like it is.